Good evening and welcome to another study, Thursday evening. And this week we studied a portion of Bamidbar. It's the first portion of the Book of Numbers. And the book is called Book of Numbers because it begins with the counting of the Jewish people. And the conclusion of the book is with counting as well. Can everybody hear me? Raise your voice, raise your hand if you hear me. Thank you. So first, I want to talk about something that's a little farther in the portion, and then we'll come back to other topics. We have a statement in Jewish tradition, woe to the wicked and woe to his neighbor. Anybody heard that before? According to Jewish tradition, when you move with a neighbor, you better make sure it's a good neighbor. Because if your neighbor is not a good guy, not a good person, the impact, the effect it has on the neighbors is very, very negative. And on the other hand, when a neighbor is great, a smart man, a good-hearted, kind-hearted person, it affects the neighbors in a positive way. But the impact a neighbor has on a person can be in many, many ways. And this week, based on the Rebbe's teaching, can give us a glimpse into understanding the impact of a neighbor. So I'm turning to, in our Chumash, in our Torah book, I'm turning to page 864. And on it's chapter 3, verse 29. I am going to read, it's a very simple verse. It talks about the order of the Jewish people encamping around the temple, particularly the Levites. The tribe of Levi is divided into 3 families, and they were situated in the front on the east side. However, some families were close to the south end, and the other was close to the north. And it was a striking opposite the impact they had on their neighbors. So here is verse 29, and then I will share with you Rashi, and then we'll see what the Medrash says and how it's very applicable in each one of our day-to-day life. The Torah says, God commands Moshe, Mishpechot Bnei Kehat, the family of the Kehat family, one of the 3 Levi family, Yachanu, let them camp, Al Yerech HaMishkan, on the south side of the tabernacle, Teimana, to the west corner. I'm going to read the translation. The families of Kehat's descendants camped to the south side of the tabernacle, but on the west side. Rashi says, and the people who were close to the south side, to the Kehat family, were the Reuven tribe. Reuven, Shimon, and Gad were 3 tribes encamped on the south side. Reuven is the one who produced 250 men, leaders of families, who fought Moshe and were killed in a very harsh way when Korach came from the Kehat family, rebelled against Moshe. Also, Dasan and Aviram, 2 men who were very wicked, that also were rebelling against Moshe, died together with Korach. They all came from the tribe of Reuven. Says Rashi the following. Adjacent to Kehat's descendants were Reuven division, which camped to the south. Woe to the wicked man and woe to his neighbor. Due to this, the son of Aram and 250 men from the tribe of Reuven were punished with Korach, a descendant of Kehat, and his congregation, as they were drawn into their dispute along with them. Rashi said because they were on the corner of the south, they were on the west, close to the south. Kehat's grandson was Korach, who was rebelled against Moshe. the neighbors, his neighbors, which is Reuven, produced the 250 rebellious men together with Datan and Aviram. They were rebelling against Moshe, and they died in that time. At that time, and Rashi attributes it to the fact that they were neighbors. However, Medrash Tanchuma and Medrash Rabbah both bring the same with some variations. I'm just going to give you the very short part of the language because I don't want to get into the technicality. Medrash Tanchuma says to the south were the descendant of Kehath, and adjacent to them were the tribes of Reuven, Shimon, and Gad. Due to this, the saying arose, woe to the wicked and woe to his neighbor, for these three tribes who were neighbors of Korach and his congregation were destroyed to them as a result of his dispute. Tanchuma says very similar. Medrash Rabbah, the three tribes of the south who were adjacent to the adjacent to the quarrelsome people were destroyed with them. About them it is said, woe to the wicked man and woe to his neighbor. Who were the quarrelsome people? Korach and his son, the son of Itzar, the son of Kehath. Being that Reuven, Shimon, and Gad were adjacent to them, they were all quarrelsome. Medrash Rabbah says the same thing. Being neighbors of Kehath, whose grandson, Korach, rebelled against Moshe, they ended up rebelling and dying in a very harsh way. The Lubavitch Rebbe is asking two questions. The first question is, Rashi says 250 men and Dasan and Aviram. The Medrash says the tribe of Reuven, all inclusive. It seems a minor change, but it's actually very important. Why did Rashi change? The source of Rashi is the Medrash, Medrash Rabbah and Medrash Tanchuma. They both talk about the tribe. Rashi is talking about 250 men. Number two, Rashi says that it caused them to sin. The Medrash talks about their punishment, that they were punished in a harsh way being neighbors. Why is this that Rashi is talking about committing a sin versus punishment? And here is the difference. Here is the point the Rebbe makes. The Rebbe says that when a neighbor affects his neighbor, it can be in three different ways. One way is that it is only circumstantial. I'm going to read the Rebbe's words. The Rebbe says that the first way of affecting a neighbor is a circumstantial association. According to this understanding, a person has no real lasting impact on his neighbor's character, and it is only that the neighbor may benefit or suffer from being a close proximity to that individual. So one way the neighbor can affect those who live nearby by, it's called a technicality, just circumstantial. It so happened to be that the neighbor happened to move in the wrong neighborhood and it affected them. That's one way. Another way is, we call it transformational. The neighbor can change the character and the type of a person they are. Being a bad neighbor that's next door, living to me, for example, it will cause the person living next to me to be affected and change my behavior and becoming a bad person. We call it, as the Rebbe calls it, transformation of personality. That's a second way of a neighbor affecting. The third way is a much different way of looking at it. We call it a catalyst for latent quality. Says the Rebbe, it is not changing the person, but revealing something that inside of that person. Albeit was dormant until now, but being that I live near a bad neighbor, it makes me bring out the worst of me. And vice versa, a good neighbor, we'll talk about a good neighbor soon. So therefore, when the Reuven tribe had camped next to Kehath, next to Korach, it caused to those people in Reuven who were bad at the outset. They did not change, They were bad people to begin with, but those bad neighbors brought it to the surface, causing them to misbehave and be punished in a very, very harsh way. Says the Rebbe that actually those three explanations we just read, if you pay attention, you'll see that each one follows one of them. Medrash Tanchuma follows the first example. According to Medrash Tanchuma, it is the according to Medrash Tanchuma, it is circumstantial. Medrash Tanchuma talks about the punishment. In other words, Reuven tribe was not a bad person, people. They just happened to be next to bad people, and it caused them to act in a bad way, and they got punished. So it's all about the punishment, but their personality did not change. Medrash Rabbah is talking about those people already being bad, except that by living near Korach, it came out to the fore. So they were bad people, and you didn't know about it until they lived near their bad neighbor. According to Rashi, Rashi is the one who is holding in the second opinion, which is, we call it a transformation of character. The neighbor is able to change the person, make him become a bad person. Says the Rebbe, the Medrash, both are not talking about changing. The neighbor is not so powerful to change. The neighbor will only cause trouble for, according to one opinion, or will reveal something that's already inside the person's character anyway. Rashi is of the opinion that even a good person living near a bad neighbor will be able to be transformed and become a bad person. Says the Rebbe, that's why Rashi is the only one who is not talking about the punishment, but about the sin. Because being neighbors to Korach, these people ended up sinning, becoming bad people. The Medrash is talking about either just being in the wrong place, so they were punished, or that they were bad people to begin with, and therefore they deserve to be punished. Says the Rebbe, that's why Rashi is talking about the 250 men only, because changing a person's character is not such a simple thing, it's not so easy, and therefore it doesn't make sense that the Korach affected the entire tribe, only 250 men. I think that, by the way, the next verse is talking about good neighbors. I'm going to read verse number 38. It's about 9 verses after. Verse 38 says the following. Camping in front of the tabernacle, in front of the tent of meeting to the east, were Moshe, Aaron, and his son, who were guardians of the sanctuary duties. Rashi says Moshe and Aaron were on the east side of the tabernacle, and they were next to the tribe of Yehuda. Here, Rashi said adjacent to them was the division of the camp of Yehuda, with whom Issachar and Zvulun camped. So there were 3 tribes on the north next to Moshe and Aaron, and they are Yehuda, Issachar, and Zvulun. The righteous man prospers, and his neighbor prospers. Since they were righteous of Moshe, neighbors of Moshe, who was engaged in Torah study, they became great Torah scholars. Rashi said that when it comes to good neighbors, they affect not only few, but the entire tribe. The Rebbe points out that when it comes to evil behavior, Korach, Rashi talks about only the 250 men, not including the other tribes. But when it comes to the positive, a good neighbor affects his neighbors. The impact is far greater in a positive way. Therefore, Rashi says it affected Moshe and Aaron had good neighbors, Yehuda, Issachar, and Zvulun, for whom all became great scholars due to the fact that they lived within close proximity on Moshe and Aaron. So I think that for us in our day and age, we need to realize how important neighbors are. And before we choose a neighborhood, before we choose a place to dwell in, with not only the house, not only the construction was good, not only the did restriction accommodate for a sukkah and accommodate for whatever else we need to make sure we have good neighbors, because according to Rashi, a bad neighbor can change a person to becoming a bad person. According to the Medrash, if a person was bad to begin with, it will bring it up. Or according to the Medrash Tanchuma, it only causes trouble. From time to time, we end up in trouble because we have bad neighbors. But according to Rashi, it is a major, major impact that changes. I also want to talk now a little bit about, to deviate from this expulsion, to talk about the quarantine that we all are finding ourselves amidst. Anybody knows where is the word quarantine come from? Can anybody share where quarantine comes from? What's the meaning of the word quarantine?
40.
Huh?
Quarante.
I didn't hear.
Quarante. 40.
40. Did somebody says 40?
Yep.
Thank you. Who was it?
Brian.
Brian, thank you. Quarantine comes from the word, from the number 40. Huh? Yes or no? So the word quarantine came from the word 40. We are about to receive the Torah. Moshe, before he received the Torah, after he received the Torah, he went to the Mount Sinai and he was quarantined for 40 days and 40 nights. What did he do during the 40 days and 40 nights? He studied the Torah in the morning by day and oral Torah at night. Elijah the prophet also, if anybody is familiar with the Bible, was quarantined. He had to hide for 40 days from Isabel, from our evil queen. And so I just read about a famous rabbi in the 18th century. He was born in 1750. He was the rabbi in Israel, in Hebron, during the year of 1750, and he was sent to collect funds in Europe. And the rule in Venice was a quarantine for anybody who arrives in the city who is a foreigner. They had to go into a nearby island, their merchandise, everything had to be quarantined for 40 days. So for 40 days, what did he do? His name is Chaim Yosef David Azulai, or as is known, Chida. The Chida, he was quarantined for 40 days. He was able to, the community was very wealthy. They were very established. So they gave him they sent him two servants to assist him. In the 40 days, he was able to compose an encyclopedia of 1,500 Jewish sages that lived from the time of the giving of the Torah until his time, all by memory. He also put together over 2,000 books that they published, those sages. He is a bibliograph. He became the most famous known sage among Jewish people when it comes to biography of books or humans or rabbis throughout the history. I have his book, and the book is until this very day is one of the first sources to go when we want to find anything about the past. I think that we need to remember that being in quarantine is not a time to be wasted. We can use it as a quality time. And one more thing, not everybody will be happy to hear, a survey by a company called Qualer, I think, Qualer, found that people that were quarantined with one child or more in the house, they ended up being much more productive and they achieved much more. And finally, they also found out that the quarantine did not do so bad to the economy. The year 2020 is not, so to say, wasted. Even though we had many, many deaths, people perished, there is no doubt. At the same time, the time saved for travel to work and back, the quality of time people can achieve at home was very productive, and there was no loss in productivity. Overall, they found that there is no loss in productivity, and it was actually a very good time. I'm here to tell you that quarantine should not be viewed as something that's very bad, but to be utilized in the best way possible. Hopefully, we are at the tail end of the quarantine. I want to move into another point, and that is on page 854, verse 49, chapter 1, verse 49. in the 840, I said 854. Again, the way the Rebbe explains. We read in this week's portion about counting of Jewish people, but there was one tribe that was the exception. The tribe of Levi should not be counted. But later on, we find that they were counted from 1 month and over. Every other tribe was counted from the year from 20 years of age, except the Levi tribe that was counted from 1 month. But there is something here that's very peculiar. Verse 49 says the following: "אך את מטה לוי לא תפקוד, ואת ראשם לא תישא בתוך בני ישראל." This is God speak to Moshe, and he says to him, I'm reading the translation. God spoke to Moshe saying, only do not count the tribe of Levi. Do not calculate the number together with the children of Israel. And later on, God says to Moshe to count them. Rashi asks, why not count the Levi tribe? What's wrong with them? Says Rashi, I have two explanations. The first explanation, Rashi says, the king's legion deserves to be counted on its own. Because they are an elite unit, they are not counted as part of the rest of the community, but by themselves. Second, another explanation, God foresaw that a decree would be passed in the future against all those counted from 20 years and upwards, condemning them from condemning them to die in the desert. He said, let these Levites not be included. They are mine, for they did not err in the golden calf. So the second explanation Rashi brings is because God knew that those who are counted from 20 years of older will not enter the Holy Land because they worship the golden calf. Levi tribe did not worship the golden calf, therefore they're going to enter the Holy Land. Therefore, they should not be counted. The Rebbe is asking why Rashi needed two explanations, and what's the connection between the two? One is that they are God's legion, they are the elite legion of God, and the second is they shouldn't be counted because they didn't sin in the golden calf. The Rebbe explains the following. Rashi had a problem. God says, do not count the Levites, and later on he commands to the Moshe to count the Levites. So there are two possible explanations. One explanation is that the second half of the verse answers, and that is, God says to them, do not count them among the Israelites. In other words, he didn't say don't count them, period. He just said don't count them together with the rest of the community, but count them separately. That's one way of understanding. Another way is do not count them, period, like the Jewish people counted, meaning they should never be counted. Says the Rebbe, if you look later on, when God tells Moshe to count the Levites at the age of 1 month and over, on page 864, Moshe is asking God, how will I know all the little children, the infants at the homes? The adults, I can ask and I can be told, but the children, how do I know? And God says to Moshe, don't worry. You just pass by each Levi's tribe, each Levi's member's tent, and an echo, God's message will come out and tell you so many men, so many women, so many children. So you don't have to worry about finding out the details. And Moshe did exactly that. He went by, as we read later in the text, that he did not actually count them, but he only got them the numbers. Because a messenger, an echo, a bat call, we call it in Hebrew, came out and announced each tent's number of inhabitants. Says the Rebbe, that's the second explanation, that God actually did not want Moshe to count the Levites because God himself is going to count them. That's why he tells them, don't count them. They are my legion. Only the second explanation, they shouldn't be counted among the Jews, they should be counted by themselves, is based on the second part of the verse where they should not, they can be counted but never be counted among the Jewish people. And finally, one more thing. At the beginning of this week's portion, we read the start, chapter 1, verse 1, page 848. וידבר השם אל משה במדבר סיני, in the Sinai desert, בעול מועד, in the tent of meeting, באחד לחודש השני, in the first of the second month, which is the first of Iyar, בשנה השנית, in the second year, לצאתם מארץ מצרים לאמור, after they left Egypt. I'm going to read the English translation before I point out something. God spoke to Moshe in the Sinai desert, in the tent of meeting, on the first day of the second month, in the second year after their exodus from the land of Egypt, saying, and what does he say to Moshe? Take a tally, take a sum of the entire congregation. Everybody is asking, why does the Torah tells us that he spoke to Moshe in the Sinai desert? Where else should they be? It's the second year after they left Egypt. There is no other place they can be found. God never told them to leave Sinai desert. And every time God spoke to him before or after, he doesn't tell him where he spoke. Only here it says Bamidbar Sinai. Vaydaber Hashem al Moshe, God spoke to Moshe Bamidbar Sinai, the Sinai desert, Be'ol Moed, at the tent of meeting. It should have said Be'ol Moed, in the tent of meeting. Why Bamidbar Sinai? The Even Ezra, Rashi, by the way, does not address this question. The Rebbe says that Rashi figured that we can find out on our own based on previous Rashi, as we'll find out. The Ibn Ezra says the following. To inform us that once God's presence rested in the tent of meeting, Moshe no longer ascended to Mount Sinai to speak to God. Ibn Ezra said this is the first time God speaks to Moshe, and he says on the Sinai desert in the tent of meeting to tell us that Moshe never needed to ascend Mount Sinai to speak to God, because anytime he needed to speak to God, it was the tent of meeting. That's one. But the Rebbe points out that later Rashi says that God, out of great love to the Jewish people, he counts them every time, every possibility he has. Says the Rebbe, if you go back to the time the Jewish people left Egypt, you read that God praised the Jewish people, and he's very proud of his people that Lechtech acharai bamidbar, you followed me in a desolate desert, be'eretz lo zruah, in an unplanted or sowed land, a place where no man can be found, and you left and followed my instruction without questioning, without complaining, and without coming up asking for answers. Says the Rebbe, therefore, when God wants to express his love for the Jewish people, he constantly reminds us that he spoke to Moshe about this Bamidbar Sinai, in the Sinai desert, in a desolate place where you won't find anybody other than just a bunch of people who are following God's order. And that's why he loved them all the time, and he counts them all the time. Even when they sin, his love extends to them. Even when they are misbehaving, and definitely when they do follow his order and they do follow his instructions, he still expresses his love to them, and he's always connected to them. I want to conclude by reminding everyone that we have morning services only, without socializing or any food served. If you would like to attend the services at 8 o'clock, please let us know before, because we have a limit to how many people, and there are certain restrictions that you'll have to follow and agree to. Also, tomorrow night, Friday night, we'll try and have services at 7:30 p.m. with all the restrictions about wearing masks and being careful where you touch, designated seats, very limited, only up to 20 people, and we will leave right after service. There will be no socializing. Towards next week, God willing, Thursday night is a holiday of Shavuot. We will not be starting next Thursday. I just want to remind you that Thursday night, Friday, and Shabbat are a holiday of Shavuot. We will have services on Thursday night, Friday night, Friday morning at 10 a.m., Saturday morning at 10 a.m., and on Saturday there is Yizkor to be said. If you will attend the synagogue, let us know before, because if we have to, we will have two separate services, one perhaps outdoors or another one in the preschool room. And also, if you need someone to be set up for someone, the Yizkor prayer, and you're not intending to participate, please, you can forward the names, and we'll assure that someone mentioned their names during the Yizkor prayer. I want to wish everybody a good Shabbos, and may we share only good news.